Hello, my name is Jennifer Ferreira and welcome to another Grand Entrevista. The provincial government's decision to cut the number of Toronto City Councillors in half was a drastic one. But Ontario's capital wasn't the only city to undergo significant change as a result. Nearly half of Brampton City Council is made up of new faces. These include a new mayor, of course, with the election of former Ontario PC leader Patrick Brown, along with my guests today. Joining me are Paul Vicente and Rowena Santos, regional and city councillors for wards 1 and 5 of Brampton. Thank you so much for joining us today, both of you.
Thanks so much, Jennifer.
Thank you for having us. It's a pleasure.
I'd like to start by just saying congratulations to the both of you. Paul, for your victory as a regional councillor, as well as Rowena, your victory as city councillor for wards 1 and 5 of Brampton.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If we could start off by your initial reaction, the both of you, to having found out that you won.
We were sitting in the campaign office with our core team and our family, gathered around a computer, all of us. And as the results started coming in, there was this uproar of excitement as we saw the results coming in because we weren't sure what the margin would be in terms of the campaign results.
Right.
And we were very happy to see that we won and by a good amount.
Yeah, it was a long campaign, 4 months that we were working hard, knocking on doors and talking to the residents of wards 1 and 5, and to see that they had heard our message and that they had accepted us to be their representatives in our area was really a true honor, and it was a thrill.
Now, Rowena, you mentioned a pretty decent margin, and you had actually won as city councillor, 41% of the vote. Paul, you had won 44% of the vote. Both of you, what do you think was the aspect of your platform that resonated the most with voters?
Well, in any campaign, you begin by knocking on doors and talking to people. And that's when you begin to realize what their priorities and their hopes and their dreams are for what Brampton can be. And so as you speak to people and you incorporate their views into a platform, hopefully that resonates with everyone else that you're speaking to as you go through the campaign. And so we consulted and we knew what it was that folks in Brampton would like to see. And so we're pleased that they accepted us and that we will be committed to working on those priorities.
A key component to our campaign was community engagement. And part of that at the grassroots level meant knocking on doors. And we started knocking on doors in the spring. We didn't have a platform at that point because we were committed to listening to what the residents were telling us as to what they expected from the city moving forward. And from that platform, we created a platform. From the platform of community engagement, we actually created the platform, and it really resonated with the folks in Brampton.
Now, Paul, you also ran for the position of regional councillor in 2014.
Yes.
And you did come in second to Elaine Moore. I'd like to know what you did differently this time to win. Did you do anything differently?
Well, one of the aspects that was the same was knocking on doors. That was one of the major things that we did every single day. But working with Rowena and having Rowena as a partner and teaming up together perhaps is what really made our campaign ultra successful.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that the residents that we heard from, they wanted to see people, especially their representatives, working together in collaboration. And so Paul and I working together as a team with and bringing in new and young people to the campaign made a huge difference in this election.
Now, Rowena, you were up against 10 other candidates for the position of city councillor for wards 1 and 5, which is more than for any other seat in Brampton during this year's election. And so I'd like to know how you managed to separate yourself from the other competitors.
One of the ways is, again, Paul and I working together as a team. I think we were the only ones who very publicly campaigned together as a team at every level.
Okay.
The other aspect is I have a lot of campaign experience. That's what I've been doing for many years, managing other candidates. And through that process of experience, I've learned a lot about what it means to be a candidate, what it means to make sure that the voters are listened to and how to campaign on the ground. We knocked on doors. I believe we might have been the only candidates who knocked on doors as intensely as we did. I could with confidence say that we knocked on every single street of wards 1 and 5. We knocked on all the doors. And in fact, some areas we went back 2
Several
or 3
times.
times
Yes.
Wow.
by the time E-Day came. So, I don't want to give the secrets away per se, but it was that level of community engagement
And the
that
dedication.
really made the difference. Every day from 2 to 9 p.m. every day.
And that's really important because in the city of Brampton, people are hungry to connect with their officials and with the people who are representing them. And so if you are talking to them and gauging their opinion, that is what allows you to do better and to be a better representative. And so we're humbled by the result. And I know that Rowena and I are both looking forward to continuing those conversations, continuing to knock on doors and to listen to the people who have elected us.
Out of the 11 seats on Brampton City Council, 5 of them are new faces as a result of this year's election, the 2 of you included. How do you feel about working in collaboration with a lot of councillors that will be returning?
I think it's super important. The folks in the city want us to collaborate and work cooperatively with each other. It has to be about the priorities of Brampton and moving the city forward. And that expectation was clear throughout the campaign. And it is our duty to make sure that it happens.
And another thing that's also very important for folks to know is that we have relationships with all the people who are on council, both the ones who are returning and the new ones. And so that bodes well for us to be able to continue to work on priorities that are important for Bramptonians. And we are committed, not just between us, but also for other members of council to working collaboratively on every single issue.
And in fact, Gurpreet Singh Dillon, who is the regional councillor, wards 9 and 10, I was his campaign manager in 2014. And so that relationship is already there, and we've already collaborated together for the past 4 years.
Right.
Marta Medeiros in wards 3 and 4. Paul and I actually went and campaigned door to door with him during the actual election. So some of these relationships already exist.
Right. And so there's certainly value in this, not just being a counselor, but in terms of the sense of trust, perhaps, that residents are getting and seeing from you and your commitment to being a counselor.
Absolutely.
Okay. Were either of you surprised at the result for the mayor of Brampton?
We are always listening to what people are saying. And what people decided was that they wanted to see change in the mayor's office. And so we accept that decision. But we're also excited about the opportunities that we now have as the councillors in wards 1 and 5 to work with Patrick Brown, who is the mayor-elect here in the city of Brampton. He brought a platform that was very positive, that talked about a lot of the same things that we were talking about. And that shows that he was listening as well to the residents in the city. We have a lot of challenges, and so it's going to be important that the mayor lead the city and that the mayor work with all of us and with the residents to make sure that we're working on things like bringing more jobs to the city, that we're working to ensure that safety is a priority, that we're working to make sure that we bring more economic benefits. We need a university. We want to ensure that we have another hospital built in the city. And these are all values that we share. And so I think for Mr. Brown, as he takes the reins, so to speak, of the city and leads us, we are looking very forward to working with him, collaborating with him, and supporting the priorities that we all know residents in Brampton share. And so for us, we're very happy to see him take charge and to lead us to the kind of city that we would all like to see.
And, with all honesty, he ran a good campaign. He was outdoor knocking and he had signs up and he ran a good campaign. Were we surprised? It was a really tight race. The margin for the mayoral race was quite small, considering it was a mayoral race. In terms of moving forward, that's where we all have to come together.
Right. In terms of your interaction with Patrick Brown up until now, can you describe a bit about what that's been like? Have you met him since he was elected? So
I've had the opportunity of working with Patrick Brown when he was a leader of the Conservative Party of Ontario through broadcasts, which we created through Brampton Focus. But the morning after the election, I called him to congratulate him, and we had a brief conversation on some of the priorities that we have immediately for the city. And so he was very happy to see that we're open and that we're willing to talk to him, of course. And, he is the mayor. And so we're looking forward to engaging with him on a constant basis and figuring out what it is that we have to do every day to make sure that motions and priorities and that the progress of the city moves us forward.
I spoke to Patrick Brown a few days after the election, and then we went trick-or-treating in the neighborhood where he lives in with our kids.
Absolutely.
And we weren't sure for sure if it was his house or not, but we risked it and we went, rang the doorbell, and sure enough, Mayor-elect Brown answered the door.
Right.
So within 1 week, I think we met with Patrick Brown twice, once when we were trick-or-treating, and then just more recently, we had a sit-down conversation with him as well.
Okay, so promising things for the future.
Absolutely.
Now, Paul, last time you were here, one of the major issues that you said the city was facing was high property tax rates. We touched on the concept of Brampton being a bedroom community with an emphasis on residential development as opposed to commercial. Part of your platform involves increasing commercial zoning for small, medium, and startup companies. Can you talk a bit more about this?
Yes, it's going to be key to the progress of the city of Brampton. We just had a meeting with the Brampton Board of Trade, and we share the same ideas in that the city of Brampton requires more opportunities for folks to be able to work here. When we talk about livability and we talk about quality of life, what we mean is that we want to live in a city where folks can live, work, and play with an emphasis on work, because Brampton is an amazing place to live. We have great neighborhoods, great homes, schools, places to shop, places to enjoy, amazing park system. But the fact is that more than 60% of Brampton residents who are working have to leave the city every day to go find employment elsewhere.
Right.
We have been very, I'm not sure if it was intentional, but the city has allowed its workforce to be exported to other cities in the area. And so what that means is that our economy suffers, and it also means that folks are spending more and more time in their car to get to and from work. And this was something that folks were telling us every single day when we were knocking on doors. And so the solution to that is a long one, but it requires for us, as we make decisions, to ensure that when we make a decision, we're always looking through the lens of how does this bring more jobs to Brampton? So whether it's a new development or whether it's a high-rise or zoning of an area, we want to make sure going forward that we're asking staff, what are you doing in this particular aspect, decision, to ensure that there's more job opportunities being created? Because Brampton still has a lot of employment lands available, but it's limited. And so we want to make sure that as we redevelop certain areas or we're doing development in established parts of the city, that we're making sure that it includes residential, office, and other mixed uses, so that there's always an opportunity for a shop or for an office or for some small business to be able to partake and exist in that area. Right. And so perhaps Rowena can add to that, but jobs for us is going to be priority one.
So it's about protecting our employment lands and our commercial zoning that's already there, finding new places where commercial industry can actually set up and invest. And also, as we were talking to Brampton Board of Trade, it's about getting folks from around the world, businesses from around the world, to come and invest in Brampton to create more jobs.
Right.
Yeah, and another aspect too that's very important is that we want to encourage job growth. In the easiest place that we can do that is with existing companies. So existing companies are already operating in Brampton. And so what is it that we can do as a city to incent job growth in those established businesses already? It's one of the easiest ways that we can create a job.
And this is where the zoning comes in.
Well, it's where zoning or incentives can come in. And Rowena on the campaign trail also talked a lot about, community benefits. So we want to make sure that if we're offering incentives to businesses to either expand or to grow or to come here, if we offer them an incentive, we're also ensuring that when they do establish their footprint in Brampton or they do grow, They are ensuring that they provide a benefit to the community. And Rowena can explain more what she means by a community benefit agreement.
It's something that they do in Toronto already. So for example, if a business wants to develop in Brampton and there's a tax incentive associated with that for them to come here, we also want to tie a community benefit agreement. What that means is, for example, the business has to have a certain percentage of local hires from Brampton in order to get that tax incentive.
So it has to meet certain requirements, and then it will get that additional sort of community
Correct.
benefit.
Because the multiplier effect of a business setting up in Brampton is quite significant, right? The people who will be working there in Brampton will be spending their money locally in Brampton instead of commuting somewhere else, buying their lunches somewhere else,
Exactly.
shopping somewhere else.
Exactly. I'd like to talk now about the university. Elections aside, I think one thing that both of you, as well as your competitors, sort of agreed upon was the opportunity that a new university campus or satellite campus would bring in terms of job creation. So just to add a little bit of context, there was a partnership between Ryerson University as well as Sheridan College that was set to bring a satellite campus to Brampton by 2022, with the previous Liberal government having invested, or committed rather, $90 million to the initiative. Just recently, however, the current Conservative government canceled the funding for the project and two others like it in Milton and Markham. I'd like to know what either of you make of this news.
So this one really hits home for us because it's right in wards 1 and 5, literally down the street from our houses.
Mm-hmm.
And we met with the president of Ryerson back in April to discuss the amazing opportunity of the university coming to Brampton. For so long, our residents have been waiting for university. It is a vision of mine personally to see my son attend that university when he grows up. So it's a big, huge deal, and also an economic development issue. Because of that, when we heard the news that night, it was just one day after the election, not even 24 hours.
Right.
That's right.
Paul and I started making phone calls. And decided that, you know what, there is a solution. The city can step up if we have to. $150 million was already allocated to develop the library and the innovation center. We can use some of that money, reallocate it for the capital costs of the university. So at least that continues as planned.
Okay.
We wanted to demonstrate that commitment.
Yes, and so Ryerson University's plans for the city of Brampton are far greater than the idea of just a satellite campus. Ryerson University currently has more than 45,000 students in Toronto, and they no longer have any room or any opportunity to grow within the Toronto footprint. And so they see Brampton as their expansion opportunity.
Of course.
So while there is a lot of discussion, both in the news and in the media and online, about the size of this university, which is touted to be approximately 2,000 students, that's just a starting number. And so we were told by President Lashemi that Ryerson plans to grow well beyond that number within downtown Brampton. When they look at Brampton, they see opportunity for Ryerson to be able to grow. And not to be daunted by the fact that the province decided to, for budgetary reasons, to pull back on the $90 million. But Ryerson University is already establishing a footprint in downtown Brampton by bringing the Chang School of Business, and they are going to be starting classes in Brampton this spring. So that just shows you, and it shows the viewers, that Ryerson is already very committed to being in Brampton. And so we're very hopeful and encouraged by their enthusiasm, and they are also encouraged by ours, that we can work through this problem and get that university built, because it's important for our kids, it's important for our economy, and if as one of the largest, fastest growing cities in Brampton, Bramptonians deserve to have a university, a full university, an expansion of Ryerson University in our downtown.
One crisis currently facing the city involves healthcare. One full-service hospital here in Brampton for over 600,000 residents has obviously led to thousands of patients being treated in hallway healthcare. Not to mention the shortage in beds, less than half of the national average of 2.6 beds per 1,000 people. So healthcare, as we know, falls under the jurisdiction of the provincial government. And so I'd like to know what the both of you are planning to do in terms of trying to get more resources or funding to the City of Brampton.
So we're encouraged by the fact that the new provincial government at Queen's Park, in their platform, said that healthcare would be a priority for them. They want to find efficiencies, that's great. But we believe that in Brampton, efficiencies are not enough. As you pointed out, we have less than half the national average of beds. We have approximately 650 beds available, acute care beds in the city of Brampton. You compare that to Mississauga's number of almost, I think they have more than 1,200 beds for serving their population of approximately 700,000. So we are vastly underserved. So efficiencies may work in other communities across Ontario, but in Brampton, we desperately need new investment. So there is a plan that was announced by the previous government to expand Peel Memorial Hospital.
Right.
And we want to hold this government to account to make sure that they follow through on those plans. But we can do more. So the plan for the City of Brampton is to continue to work with the province, but also to begin planning not just for a second hospital, but for the third.
Right.
And that's something that at the municipal level we can do is take a look at where in the city that third hospital might be built.
Now, Rowena, last time the both of you were here, you had brought up rising crime rates as another major issue facing the City of Brampton, and perhaps the funding of community programs being a solution. So I'd like to know what kinds of programs exactly you had in mind.
I think, so we recently, 7 days after the election, we had a community safety town hall, number 2, to get more feedback from the residents and an update from our last one back in August as to how folks are feeling about community safety. 2 things came up. Number 1, folks are very interested in bringing back Neighborhood Watch and making sure that that program, Neighborhood Watch Brampton, is supported and funded. I think they have now 60 different neighborhoods that they are serving as a community, and it is part of empowering the community to make their neighborhood safe. So that's one thing. One of the other things that came up from our community safety meeting was actually the issue around mental health and addictions, and making sure we have more support services for mental health and addictions, which is also directly associated with crime rates in Brampton as well.
Right.
So it falls on the Region of Peel, who funds a number of different groups throughout the city who are actively working every day to address addictions, mental health issues, and healthcare in general. Historically, the City of Brampton and the Region of Peel has not been adequately funded for decades, in fact. A lot of our social service providers are operating on string budgets. They've had to move in with one another so that they can save on office and operational costs. And so it's going to be important as we move forward at the Region of Peel to ensure that our government relations get stepped up significantly, because we need to make sure that folks recognize if you expect Brampton, if you expect the Region of Peel to continue to grow as it has for the past 25, 30 years, you got to increase that funding that our social service groups need and expect in order to be able to deliver services. So we have issues that we need to be looking at, and we need to make sure that we continue to advocate for our fair share of funding for Peel Region.
One final thing I will say, which kind of came up at the Community Safety Town Hall meeting, is a youth council for Brampton. So one of the things we found out throughout our campaign was people were talking about youth getting involved in crime, not having enough opportunities, not enough role models, mentors. Right. And what we would like to do is bring a youth council to Brampton where we have youth ambassadors and leaders who are part of City Hall and part of us as councillors.
In terms of community outreach, one thing that both of you are constantly trying to do are holding these town hall meetings. And so I'd like to know, what exactly can residents of wards 1 and 5 expect in terms of town hall meetings to come in the future?
Our commitment during the campaign was very clear that if we are elected, we will continue to engage with people in as many different meaningful ways as possible. One of the ways that we do that is through social media. It's a very quick and immediate way of gauging how people are feeling about a variety of different issues. But we're committed to continuing that in a more direct way through town hall meetings. And we'd like to do those on a regular basis, kind of like the way church is. You always know that every Sunday you have your service at church. We want our town halls to be regular, always in the same place if possible, and at the same time of year. So as we go forward, we will start to make those plans concrete and make sure that we announce to the community, this is where you can find us, because we're going to need everyone's help to help us make good decisions. And it's through input with everyone that we can do that.
In addition to that, a couple of things. So the other thing is we promised that we would continue canvassing, and we will. We are going to go canvassing on a regular basis, going to the different neighborhoods, connecting with voters and residents at their doorsteps regularly. And I just was laughing with Paul earlier that we might have a Christmas Carol canvass in December where we'll carol in different neighborhoods and meeting the residents in the neighborhoods. The other thing is we are going to make a call out for community engagement volunteers. These are volunteers who will be part of our team for the next 4 years to come with us door to door, talking to residents, but also helping us with town hall meetings.
Okay. Thank you so much, Paul, Vicente, and Rowena Santos, for spending the day with us today at Correio de Manhã, Canada. It was a pleasure speaking with the both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
This has been yet another Grande Entrevista. My name is Jennifer Ferreira. Have a good night.